The clatter of spoons and quiet hum of conversation filled the gold-lit dining hall of Makuta Resort, where river breezes slipped through woven curtains and the scent of spice-roasted chicken danced in the air. Then, "You stepped on my robe, A.T." Piercing voice tore through the stillness. Amelia's shriek silenced the room. Laughter died, forks froze mid-air, and heads turned. I'm terribly sorry," gasped the young server, Ayanda, her hands trembling as she reached out instinctively. "But," Amelia snatched her arm away, "do you know how much this robe costs? It could pay for your entire life, you little goat." She rose slowly from her chair, every movement steeped in disdain. Her silk wrap shimmered under the lantern light, but her glare was sharper than any jewel she wore. She looked Ayanda up and down, lips curling. "What are you even doing in a place like this?" she sneered. "Scraping coins from empty plates like a street beggar? This place isn't for your kind." Before anyone could react, a crack split the air like a thunderclap. Amelia's hand had struck Ayanda across the face. Silence. Complete, stunned silence. The tale you are about to hear isn't just about a slap. It's about pride, about dignity, and about what happens when truth meets arrogance. If you believe respect belongs to everyone, drop a word in the fire below. Tell us where you listen from, and keep your ears open. Makuta Resort was a haven for the rich. The kind of place where tribal chiefs booked private tables and foreign guests snapped endless pictures of woven ceilings and riverfish platters. The staff moved like dancers, quiet and efficient, their smiles practiced but genuine. Ayanda, barely 26, had been one of them for 6 moons now. A tall, dark-skinned woman with warm eyes and fast hands, she worked not just for herself, but to gather coin for school. Her dream was to study healing at the Grand College of Ombe, and every night she served rich strangers with grace, pocketing her hopes with every tip. But that night would change her forever. Ayanda wasn't just a waitress, she was family too. The resort's owner, Ni Mensa. Her mother's cousin, a shrewd but fair businessman, had taken her in after her parents passed. She had been raised with stories of pride, of standing tall even when others tried to bend you, but even strength gets tested. Amelia's eyes had followed Ayanda all night like a lioness watching a hare. Her face, painted in luxury, was always twisted in disapproval. She sat surrounded by 3 jeweled friends, sipping palm wine and giggling, until Ayanda approached. Amelia stiffened. Her smile vanished. "Finally," she muttered under her breath. "The ghost returns." Her words were low, but her intent was loud. Ayanda greeted them politely, laying the drinks with her usual poise. But Amelia leaned in, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "I've been waiting 20 whole minutes," she said with exaggerated pain. "Do you only serve those who look like you? Or do you just move like a turtle?" Ayanda kept her smile. "Apologies for the delay, ma'am. I had to refill the kitchen spice pots." "Oh," Amelia interrupted, eyes gleaming with poison. "So now you're the chef too?" At a family table by the bamboo wall, a young boy tugged at his mother's sleeve. "Mama, why is that? Lady being so mean?" his sister whispered. "You always say kindness is important." Their mother, Abeni, looked toward the scene, concern wrinkling her brow. "Yes, my darlings. Some people forget their manners when their pockets are full." Amelia wasn't finished. "It's not just the delay," she said, waving a gold-ringed hand. "It's your face. It's like you don't even want to be here. Like you think you're above your own job." Ayanda took a breath. "I enjoy working here, ma'am." Amelia chuckled coldly. "Of course you do. Who wouldn't love fetching crumbs for a living?" At a nearby table, a quiet man in a loose traveler's robe raised an eyebrow. His name was Kato, a teacher from another village. He didn't know, Ayanda, but he'd been watching. He saw the slights, the tone, the looks, and he didn't like them. He leaned slightly toward Amelia's table. "Excuse me, sister," he said calmly, "but maybe you could lower your tone?" Amelia turned her head, slow like a snake. "Mind your tongue, stranger," she hissed. "This is between me and the help." Cato didn't reply. He just sat back and watched. Amelia's tirade continued. She complained about the wine being too warm, about Ayanda's posture, about the way her footsteps weren't graceful enough for a luxury setting. Ayanda endured it all because she had dreams, because she was close to her tuition goal, because tonight couldn't be ruined by one bitter woman, but fate had sharp claws. As Ayanda bent to pick up a plate, her heel caught the trailing hem of Amelia's prized robe. A soft tear whispered through the air. Then came the roar. "You clumsy thing!" Amelia shouted, rising to her feet. "You ruined it! You ruined my robe!" All eyes turned. Ayanda froze. I didn't mean to," she stammered, her heart racing. "Let me fix it." Before the words could finish, Amelia's palm sliced through the air and struck Ayanda's cheek. "Fix it?" she spat. "This robe costs more than your future. You should be washing feet in the back alley, not serving people like me." Ayanda's hands trembled. Her ears rang. Her cheeks stung like fire. But the pain wasn't what made her breath catch. It was the words, the venom, the look that said she was less unworthy. Ayanda closed her eyes. She saw her mother's face, heard her father's voice. "Stand tall, my child. Never bow your head to cruelty." She opened her eyes, looked Amelia straight in the face, and raised her hand. The slap that followed rang through the hall like thunder across dry plains. Glasses rattled, mouths opened, chairs shifted. Amelia stumbled back, her face struck with disbelief more than pain. Her hand flew to her cheek. Her lips parted in shock. No one had ever struck her back before. "I will not be spoken to like a stray dog," Ayanda said, her voice calm but full of fire. "Not by you, not by anyone." She didn't shout. She didn't need to. Her words, laced with dignity, filled the space with thunder louder than the slap had. From the corner, Cato, the traveler who had watched it all unfold, leaned forward slightly, a spark of admiration in his eyes. The people in the room began to shift in their seats. Some tried to look away, unsure of how to process what they'd seen. Others stared harder, holding their breath like a drum waiting to be struck. At the far end, a woman named Tamina, whose bracelets jingled as she typed on her phone, had already captured the moment. She was a well-known voice on the Circle Net, a woman whose words traveled like fire on dry grass. Before Ayanda could take a step away, a voice sliced through the tension. "Who do you think you are?" Amelia hissed. Her pride was unraveling now. Her eyes, once smug, now burned red with humiliation. "How dare you put your hands on me? Do you know who I am?" "Yes," Ayanda said without blinking. "You are someone who forgot that power does not mean respect." People started to murmur now, whispers snaking across the tables. At a nearby table, a small boy leaned into his mother's arm. "Mama, is she going to be in trouble?" he asked. His mother, Sifu, brushed his hair gently. "Sometimes the ones who stand up are called troublemakers, but they're the ones who change things." Across from them, Cato stood. Not loudly, not rudely, just with quiet strength. "She was just doing her work," he said to Amelia. "And you treated her like mud under your shoes." Amelia's head turned sharply. "And who are you now? The waiter's protector?" "No," Cato replied. "Just a man who knows right from wrong." Amelia's lip curled. Her voice dripped venom. "Stay out of it, old man, or you'll regret it." But Cato didn't budge. "It's not me you need to worry about. It's the truth. He sat again, and the room swallowed a breath. Amelia's embarrassment turned to fury. She spun around, her heels striking the floor like drum beats, and stormed toward the back hall. Her steps rattled the walls. She didn't care who saw. She had one mission now, to crush the girl who dared defy her. She burst into the office of the restaurant, her voice already rising. "Where is the person in charge of this circus?" Behind the desk sat a man named Django. His beard was gray, his eyes calm, and his hands moved slowly over a guest book. He looked up, unbothered by the storm in front of him. "Good evening, madam," he said gently. "I am Django, the house manager. How can I help you?" Amelia slammed her bag onto the table. "Help me? Oh, you will do more than help. That server, Ayanda, just laid her hands on me. I want her fired, tonight." Django folded his hands. "I understand you're upset." "Upset?" she barked. "That girl slapped me, in front of everyone. This place is a disgrace." Django nodded once. "I witnessed what happened." "Then fire her!" she shouted. But Django didn't blink. "I'm afraid it's not that simple." Amelia narrowed her eyes. "What do you mean, not that simple? That girl assaulted a guest?" Django paused, then said, "Ayanda is not just any server. She is the niece of Tamani Mensah, the founder of this restaurant, and she is family." Amelia's face lost color. "Family?" "Yes," Django said, voice still gentle but firm. "And more than that, she is here by choice. Not because she must serve, but because she wishes to earn her way to university. Everything she does here is toward a dream. That slap you gave her wasn't just to her face. It was to her dignity." Amelia stepped back. Her lips parted, but no sound came. "I would advise," Django continued, "that you reconsider your approach. We do not tolerate cruelty under this roof, and we protect our own." Amelia clenched her fists, her pride wounded beyond repair. She slapped me back," she said, almost to herself now. Django stood. "And still stood taller than you when it was done." Amelia stormed out of the office, the door slamming behind her. The hallway trembled under her fury as she made her way to the entrance, her cheeks burning, her stomach twisted in knots. People stared, but she ignored them. Not because she didn't notice, but because she couldn't handle what she saw in their eyes. Pity. And that was worse than hate. Outside, under the lantern light, she paused. The wind tossed her braids. The stars above blinked like curious gods. "She will pay," Amelia whispered. "No one embarrasses me and gets away with it." And right there, under the moon of Tamani, she made a vow. A dark, dangerous vow born, not from justice, but revenge. "I will drag her into court," she muttered. "Ruin her name. Drain her future dry." She didn't care if Ayanda had family here. She didn't care about dreams or dignity. All she saw was a girl who dared to push back. Amelia had lived her whole life with power at her fingertips. She knew lawyers, politicians, press writers. She had wealth, and she had rage. That was all she needed. Ayanda's words still echoed in her mind. "Not by anyone, not even you." That sentence repeated like a haunting drumbeat, mocking her pride. She grabbed her phone. Her fingers moved fast. A lawyer in the city owed her a favor. She began typing. A claim of assault, emotional trauma, public disgrace. She would twist the truth until it became a weapon. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat by the window of her apartment in Lusambo Heights, sipping from a glass of mint tea that had long gone cold. Her hands were still, but her mind was aflame. The slap, Ayanda's face, the silence of the restaurant, all of it played over and over again like a ghost drum in her ears. She had never been humiliated in public before, not once, not by anyone. But that girl, that waitress, had dared. Amelia, His whole life had been paved with silk and silver. She came from money, power, and a long line of women who never lost battles. And now, as she stared into the night sky, she decided she would not lose this one either. "This isn't over," she whispered to herself. The next morning, her lawyer received a call at dawn. By midday, the city courthouse had a lawsuit in hand. Amelia was suing Ayanda for harassment and public assault. Her claim? That the slap was unprovoked, that she, an innocent tourist, had been physically attacked by a waitress with an attitude problem. The story was already forming in her head. She would twist it just right, play the victim, feign emotional trauma, speak of sleepless nights and trembling hands. Her face would carry the pain of a woman violated by savagery. She wasn't just coming for Ayanda's job, she was coming for her future. Weeks passed. Then, the day arrived. The sun blazed hot over the courthouse of Emby, its stone pillars towering, like silent elders. The people gathered in whispers, eyes scanning for the accused and the accuser. Inside, the courtroom was already buzzing. Journalists, curious townsfolk, students who had read about the slap on CircleNet. It was no longer just a dispute. It had become a spectacle. Ayanda walked in first. She wore a plain blue wrapper, her hair tied back simply, her face bare of makeup. But she moved with a calm grace that turned heads. She carried no fear, only the quiet weight of truth. Behind her came her cousin, Bako, the owner of the House of Tamani. He placed a firm hand on her back before taking his seat. And then Amelia entered, draped in a velvet green gown, her jewelry clinking softly. She walked like a queen approaching her throne. But her eyes flickered with tension as they scanned the room. When she spotted a man sitting quietly near the front, her breath caught in her throat. Liam, the tourist from that night, the one who had dared speak up. She looked again and froze. The judge was entering, and he looked just like Liam. Amelia's heart dropped. "No," she whispered under her breath. The man who took the bench, Judge Thomas Mwamba, was a name known across 3 provinces. Fair, fierce, and incorruptible. Amelia's stomach churned. She realized now that Liam was more than a meddling stranger. He was the son of the very man who would now decide her fate. The room settled as Judge Thomas spoke. "This court has received testimony and claims from both sides. What happened at the House of Tamani has shaken this city, and today we seek not drama, but truth." Amelia's lawyer rose first, his voice smooth and practiced. "My client, Miss Amelia Fairchild, was enjoying an evening out when she was violently assaulted. She did not provoke the attack. She was merely responding to poor service." "Objection," Ayanda's lawyer interrupted. "There is evidence to suggest consistent verbal abuse toward the defendant before any physical contact occurred." Judge Thomas raised a hand. "Objection sustained. We will examine all facts." Then he turned to Amelia. "Miss Fairchild, you claim this waitress attacked you. Tell the court your version." Amelia took the stand. Her voice was calm, but beneath it trembled the fear of being exposed. "She humiliated me," she said. "In front of everyone, I never raised my hand. I was shocked when she slapped me." "Did you insult her?" the judge asked. "I merely made a comment about the delay in service," she replied smoothly. "That's all," the judge nodded, and signaled the defense. Ayanda rose and walked toward the stand. She looked at Amelia, not with hatred, but with something stronger. Truth. "I served her table like I did every other. She mocked me, called me names, told me I didn't belong, and then she slapped me. I reacted, but not because I wanted to hurt her. I reacted because I had been disrespected beyond what any person should endure." Her voice did not waver. Judge Thomas leaned forward. "Did you strike her first?" "No," Ayanda said. "I only defended my dignity." There was a pause. Then the judge spoke again, his voice firm. I have reviewed the evidence, the testimonies, and I find Miss Fairchild's story inconsistent. This court must be thorough. Before a ruling is made, I wish to hear from witnesses who were present. The room buzzed with shock. Amelia blinked. Witnesses? The door opened. One by one, they entered. Liam, Tamina, the social media influencer, Mama Sefu, and Bako, the restaurant owner, each stepped forward with quiet determination. Liam was first. I was there, he said. I sat close. I saw everything. Amelia mocked Ayanda from the moment she stepped up to the table. When the hem of her dress was stepped on, Amelia lost control. She struck Ayanda with such force that it echoed. Only then did Ayanda respond. Tamina took the stand next. She held her phone in her hand. I tweeted it the moment it happened. Hundreds read it. Thousands shared it. The people knew. Then came Mama Safu. I was dining with my children. They asked me why that woman was shouting at the server. I saw it happen. That slap was not self-defense. It was cruelty. Lastly, from the far end, a tall man in a white tunic rose. He had watched the proceedings quietly, arms folded, his expression unreadable. But now, his moment had come. It was Bako, Ayanda's cousin, the owner of Makuta Resort. He walked forward with the slow, deliberate strength of a man who had built his business from the ground up, a man who had faced insults disguised as critiques, a man who knew that silence could often be louder than thunder. I am Bako Mensa, he began, and I am the reason that restaurant exists. He looked at the judge, then at the room. I hired Ayanda not out of pity, but because I knew she carried the same fire my mother once had when she washed dishes for men who never looked her in the eye. I saw strength in her. I saw pride. His eyes met Amelia's. I have watched Ayanda serve the rude, the drunk, the entitled, and always with patience. But that night, something was different. That night, you crossed a line. You didn't just insult my cousin, you tried to break her spirit. Bako's voice grew low, fierce. But you failed, because people like you will always underestimate people like us. The judge raised a hand. The room stilled. Amelia sat frozen, her face pale. All eyes had turned to her, not with admiration, but with truth. The stories told by these witnesses didn't just dent her claim, they shattered it. Judge Thomas's eyes swept across the room. I have heard enough, he looked at Amelia. You, Miss Fairchild, came to this court with the claim that you were a victim, that you were assaulted without reason, that you suffered emotional trauma, and yet, with every voice raised today, your truth has unraveled. Amelia's lips parted slightly. She wanted to speak, but no words came. The evidence is clear, the judge said. The first act of violence was yours. The disrespect was yours, and the attempt to destroy this young woman's name was yours. His gavel remained still on the desk. You have not only filed a false claim, but you have committed defamation, poisoning her reputation with lies, and this court does not reward such darkness. Ayanda sat still. The words were like warmth creeping into frozen fingers. Amelia, once bold and defiant, now looked like a cracked mask barely holding together. Therefore, Judge Thomas declared, this court rules in favor of the defendant, Ayanda Kamara. The room erupted, not with cheers, but with the exhale of justice finally served. The judge wasn't done. Furthermore, he said, voice rising slightly, you, Miss Fairchild, will pay a sum for the damage you have caused, not just for the lies, but for the arrogance with which you walked into this room, expecting your money to drown the truth. Amelia closed her eyes. The amount announced was staggering, but the worst came after. Your employer, the judge, added, has been notified. They will review your conduct, your dishonesty, and the ripple you caused. May this serve as a lesson, not just to you, but to all who believe that power is permission. He stood. Court is adjourned. The gavel dropped. It echoed not just through the hall, but through every silent corner of Amelia's world. She rose slowly, her steps heavy as if chains now wrapped around her ankles. The people who had once smiled at her now avoided her eyes. Others whispered. Some watched with pity, others with quiet satisfaction. She exited the courtroom with her head low. Her pride, the same pride that once filled entire rooms, now lay in pieces behind her. Inside, Ayanda remained seated. Her lawyer whispered something, but she didn't hear it. She was thinking of her parents, of her late mother's voice, reminding her to always hold her head high, of the little girl she used to be, serving customers from her aunt's stew pot in a dusty village market. That girl had come far. She looked to Bako, who gave her a slow nod. Then to Mama Sefu, who wiped a tear from her cheek. And then she looked at the two small children, watching her like she was a hero in a storybook. In that moment, Ayanda realized something. This had never just been about her. This was for every girl told she wasn't enough. Every worker made to feel invisible. Every voice silenced by wealth. She stood and walked slowly toward the exit. As she passed, people reached out. Some to shake her hand, others just to say, "Well done." Outside, the sky was soft with clouds and the wind gentle, like the ancestors were whispering, "You did well, child." She smiled, not out of victory, but out of peace. Because now the world had seen what dignity looked like, and no amount of gold could ever erase that. Ayanda's quiet defiance had become a flame, and like all flames, it spread. The verdict had already echoed through Embe like a war drum, beating out a message the whole land would remember. No one, no matter how gilded, their sandals is above justice, and in that rhythm, people found their own heartbeat. Amelia, once the crowned queen of high society circles, was no longer met with praise or awe. Now, when her name was whispered in backdoor salons and glittery banquets, it came with frowns and half-hidden smirks. Ayanda, on the other hand, stood outside the house of Tamani 1 week after the trial. She looked up at the wide windows glinting under the rising sun, where once she walked in as just another server, she now entered as a woman transformed. She pushed the doors open. Staff paused. Some clapped. Others nodded. She returned to her place, not to collect plates, but to collect dignity. Her posture was taller, her gaze steady, and every step reminded her that courage had a cost. But it had also brought her home. In the back office, her cousin Bako smiled. "You did well," he said, arms crossed, pride resting on his shoulders like a chieftain's sash. "You didn't just fight for yourself, you stood for all of us, who've been told to bow." Ayanda's throat tightened, but she managed a soft, "Thank you." Bako continued. "What you did? It lit a fire in this place. The staff walks taller now. Even the guests speak differently. You reminded everyone that respect isn't optional." Ayanda exhaled deeply. She didn't realize she'd been holding that breath since the gavel struck. "I couldn't have done it without all of you," she said. "It wasn't just my voice. It was the chorus around me, and the ancestors before me." They sat for a moment in silence. But this time, it was a silence of peace. Outside that circle of calm, however, another story unraveled. Amelia's downfall began not in court, but in the echo chamber of her own choices. The gossip vines ran fast. Her name was no longer printed in golden cursive at fashion events or whispered at elite brunches. It was trending for all the wrong reasons. The label of liar stuck like tar. Her once pristine image was now stained with scandal. Her agency, the same people who once boasted about her style and social clout, released a polished statement. Cold, precise, public. The behavior displayed by Ms. Amelia Fairchild does not reflect the values of our institution. We are officially ending our association effective immediately. It landed like a drumbeat of exile. Suddenly, clients backed away. Deals slipped through her fingers. Her beauty contracts vanished like morning mist. And worst of all, her so-called friends? They disappeared. Some posted carefully worded apologies to save face. Others sent her cold texts. I hope you understand we have to protect our brand. Amelia stood alone in her apartment, once a palace of silk and imported wine, now quiet as a burial ground. She watched her followers vanish, her comments filled with fire. Her inbox, once overflowing with praise, now only held silence and shame. At first, she tried to fight back. She issued a statement, blaming emotional stress, a misunderstanding, and a misrepresentation of facts. But the people were no longer listening, because the truth had already spoken. Loudly, repeatedly, and without apology. She disappeared from public view, licking wounds in private. But beneath the shame, a flicker still burned, an old hunger. She hadn't climbed her way up just to stay buried. Months later, the invitation arrived. A gold-trimmed card. An event hosted by none other than Evelyn Ashford, a towering figure in global business. The kind of woman who could open any door, if she so chose. The invitation read simply, "Exclusive Circle Gala. You're invited." Amelia stared at it for hours. This could be her return. She summoned the best makeup artist she could still afford, pulled out her most dazzling black gown, and stepped into the mirror with a whispered mantra. You are still powerful. They will remember. The venue shimmered with crystal chandeliers and silk-draped staircases. Power and pride flowed through the air like incense. Rachel smiled, stepping in, eyes searching for the right person to reconnect with, someone who would give her a second chance. She saw Evelyn Ashford near the grand piano, surrounded by media barons and investment titans. But just as Amelia took a confident step forward, a voice sliced across her path. Well, well, look what privilege dragged. Back in. Amelia turned, Charlotte Winslow, a queen of mergers, ruthless, rich, and feared. Charlotte's eyes scanned Amelia from head to toe, like one would inspect a chipped diamond. You're the woman who slapped a waitress and torched her own life, right? Amelia's smile wavered. That's behind me now. Charlotte smirked. Is it, though? You wear shame like perfume, darling. You reek of it. Amelia's voice cracked, but she held on. I made mistakes. I've changed. Charlotte leaned in. You know what I don't understand? People like you. You think money lets you walk on water. You tried to drown a girl for serving wine too slow, and now you expect to swim back into our circle with a smile and sequins? She turned and walked away, leaving Amelia standing beneath a glittering chandelier that suddenly felt like a spotlight. Everywhere Amelia moved that night, the feeling followed. Eyes flicked away, smiles faded, and laughter quieted in her wake. She had thought this would be her rebirth. But it was a reckoning. She ended the night near the edge of the balcony, looking out at the glowing city below. Her reflection stared back in the glass. Who was she now? Once, she had power. Now, she had only the echo of who she used to be. And Ayanda? Ayanda was rising. Back in Embe, Ayanda's days had become lighter. The compensation from the court helped cover debts, yes. But more than that, it gave her space to dream again. And one morning, a letter arrived. She held the envelope like it was carved from ivory. She had applied months ago, long before the trial. She had almost forgotten about it. Almost. Her hands trembled as she broke the seal. Dear Miss Ayanda Kamara, We are honored to inform you that you have been accepted into the University of Ndemu's Faculty of Law. Your strength of character, academic, merit, and perseverance have deeply impressed our admissions council. We believe you will be a voice that shapes justice in this land. Ayanda stood still. She read the letter again, and again, until the words blurred through her tears. It wasn't just acceptance. It was affirmation, proof that every step she had taken, every wound, every stand, had led somewhere beautiful. That evening, she sat at her table, the warm scent of cinnamon tea rising in curls. She opened her journal and began to write, not for herself, but for others. They tried to silence me with shame, but I spoke anyway. They tried to bury me with blame, but I grew anyway. Dignity doesn't come from status. It comes from knowing your worth. To anyone who's ever been told to stay small, stand up. Even if your voice trembles, she hit post. And like before, the words traveled, not as a cry for sympathy, but as a call for strength. Amelia saw the post. She read it 3 times, then closed her phone and wept quietly in the dark. Ayanda had won. But more than that, she had healed and helped others do the same. In the end, Ayanda didn't just survive injustice, she transformed it. And Amelia didn't just face a fall, she learned what it meant to break. No matter how wealthy or powerful someone appears, the truth will always rise. Dignity cannot be bought, and respect is not a privilege, it's a right. Ayanda's courage reminds us that when we stand up against injustice, even with trembling hands, we give others the strength to rise too. If you believe no one should be above the law, and that standing for what's right matters, then hit that like button, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it today.